Hi, my name is Graeme Codrington from the team at TomorrowToday Global, and this is the final video in our series of a review of 2020. And in this final video, we're asking the fifth question of our series. What is the lasting legacy of COVID? 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when Facebook is giving us reminders of, remember where you were in 2020. And we look back on this year, 10, 15 years from now, what are we going to say? Wow, that changed everything. Some of the things that happened this year will have snapped back already. You know, weddings and birthdays that were cancelled and postponed. We'll have caught up on those. We'll be doing those again. We'll be getting back together face to face. We'll be back in our sports stadiums, and we'll be remembering, looking back at empty stadiums as our sports stars played their games. Maybe we'll still be wearing face masks. Maybe we will still be greeting people the Eastern way without shaking hands anymore. I'm certainly never shaking hands again. So there'll be a few small things. But our team has spent most of 2020 doing serious research, looking at what this lasting legacy is going to be. We want to help our clients to be ready for deep, significant, disruptive shifts in the way that the world works. We've come up with a really nice framework that we are planning to use to just tease out some of what we've seen over this last year and some of what we are going to learn in 2021. We look at 4 areas. And by the way, those of you who know things like spiral dynamics and integral psychology and Wilbur and others will see what we've done by pulling out some of the framework of that theory of integrated psychology and community. Anyway, for those of you who know that, that's an interesting aside as to what we've done with this framework. But just on the surface of it, we think there are 4 key areas for you to have a look at. The first is to look at the world systems. What's changing on the globe at a global level, and that's geopolitics, and that includes everything from shifts in governmental power. We think there'll be some quite significant shifts, and probably in 2 separate directions. We think a lot of countries are going to question the ability of their government to actually deliver. Very few countries are looking at their government and saying, hey, well done, you've done a good job. New Zealand's an obvious exception, I suppose, and 1 or 2 other countries. But most people in most countries are saying either our government didn't do a good job, or they did a bit of a shambolic job. We could possibly forgive them because nobody's ever done this before, but their communication and their flip-flopping and their ideological approach, it can't be forgiven at worst. At best, we need fresh thinking and fresh blood in the government. So one way is just a reduction of the power of government, and maybe quite significant shifts taking place in whenever the next elections are, whenever the next change of government is in those countries. On the other hand, there might be a significant shift towards authoritarianism. A lot of governments have got a nice taste of controlling their population through lockdowns and regulations and so on. And there is a danger in some parts of the world that will veer off away from just changing your government democratically to allowing populism, populist dictators, fascism to rise. So I think those sort of things are worth watching. So that's what we mean by thinking about the globe and big world issues. And by the way, they're not all huge, big issues. It could even just be your supply chain and where you get your goods and services from, and whether you want as long a supply chain as you want. Anyway, that's the first conversation, the world. The second conversation is the world of work and the workplace. This is probably going to see the biggest long-term impacts. What is the workplace for now? We know what we used to do at the office, and now we've realized we can do a hang of a lot away from the office. But what are the things that we still need to go back to the office for? And when you go back to the office, what do you want the office to look like and feel like? And what do you want to do there? I think we're going to move away from the 9-to-5 world that we used to have to the 3-2-2 world. What do I mean by that? Well, the 3-2-2 world is the 7 days of the week. 3 days at home, 2 days at the office, 2 days weekend. Or maybe 3 days at the office, 2 days at home, 2 days weekend. Whatever it is, it's going to be a hybrid. It's going to be a lot more flexible. And that's going to flow over into conferences and events and meetings and client connections and so on. So maybe that's going to be the biggest lasting legacy, along with a lot of the fourth industrial revolution, digital transformation things that I think have been speeded up by COVID. So that's the second thing to look at, the world of work. The third thing to look at is communities or societies. And this is, I suppose, everything you do in your life outside of work where you're connecting with other people. So this is schools and education. This is social clubs and sports clubs and religious institutions. I think 10 years from now, we're going to remember a massive lasting legacy of COVID. I think a lot of those clubs and religious organizations are going to be hard hit. And I think they're going to find when they can meet again, that there's going to be a very different mix of members who are connecting, and that they will have lost members and gained some. And I think, again, there will need to be a hybrid set of connections and engagements with their community. Of course, education is going to be shifted dramatically. I cannot imagine that when people get back into the classroom, and here I'm talking schools, universities, and corporate learning and development, that when people get back into a classroom, that they are going to be happy to just do it the way it was always done, to just do it in the style that used to just be, you know, chalk and talk, the lecture thing. We knew this was changing already. We knew we needed to update our systems and our educational approaches, our pedagogy as they call it. COVID will accelerate that, and there's no doubt that we will make a shift. In the corporate world, the biggest shift, I think, is that we're going to accelerate the trend that was already in place of people realizing I have to take personal responsibility for my development and my learning. Can't wait for HR to organize a course for me. Can't wait for a seat to become available on a program. I've got to go and find my learning and my development myself. And that leads to the fourth piece, which I'm sure you've worked out now, is me, myself, us as individuals. You know, I think at a simple level, we can look at that and say, well, we've all been through deep trauma. I think that's the right word, trauma. And we're going to have to come out of the other side and put ourselves back together. It's going to be huge demand for psychologists and therapists. I think they're going to have busy years over the next few years, because we all have to recover from this. Like people coming back from a war, we can't just push them back into society and then think it'll all be okay. We know what happened over the last century when we tried to do that. So we're going to have to do quite a lot of work in terms of mindfulness and introspection and healing and development. I think we're going to have long-term medical impacts, people who've had long COVID, and those of us who've had a rougher year this year than we've ever had physically, emotionally, mentally. That's going to have a knock-on health effect for a number of years. We need to get healthier. We need to get more well, and we need to look after ourselves better. And so I think part of this is going to be people making decisions about purpose and meaning and wellness like we've never done before. And I think that'll be a good thing. So if I look back and I say, was COVID good for us? No. This has been a horrible year. It's been my worst year ever. For many people, it's been their worst years ever. But is there good to be found in this disruption? Yes, I think there is. And I think in the end, that's the point of this review, is to realize that if we learn the lessons, if we allow ourselves to learn whatever lessons 2020 can give us, we will be better for it. We will be better people, we will be better families, we will be better communities, we will be better companies, we will be better countries, we will be better. Let's do that. Let's learn the lessons of 2020 and take those forward into the rest of this decade and our lives beyond that, so that we can look back and say we wouldn't have wished this on our worst enemy, but we're glad it happened because we are better for it. I don't know if that just sounds a little bit too idealistic. I hope it's not simplistic, because there's a lot of work to be done in learning and applying those lessons. But I think we can do it, and I think we'll be better off if we do. Thank you for taking the time to journey with us, the Tomorrow Today team, through 2020. We look forward to continuing our journey into 2021 and to, where we can, providing resources that are helpful and hopeful, that provide insight and information to help us do the best that we all can do. If we can help you and your team in any way, please make contact with us at TomorrowTodayGlobal.com. We'd love to partner with you through 2021 to help you make the most of a crazy, chaotic, disruptive year that we're expecting. All the best to you and yours. We'll see you on the flip side.